The air was thick with tension and anticipation as the world waited to see what would happen next. For weeks, rumors had been circulating about the strained relationship between Wei and Dylan Wang. Fans speculated endlessly, social media erupted with theories, and the silence between the two men only fueled the drama. And now, for the first time, Wei had broken that silence. Before we dive into every shocking and emotional moment of this unprecedented encounter, make sure you subscribe because the story you are about to witness will leave you completely speechless. You will feel the heartbreak, the regret, the tension, and the unexpected moments of truth as if you were standing right there. It all began late at night in a quiet private location, far from cameras and lights. Wei arrived first, his steps slow, deliberate, his mind racing with everything he wished he could say over the past months. Every word he had kept hidden, every regret he had buried, and every apology he had rehearsed in silence was about to finally be spoken. Dylan Wang arrived shortly after. His expression was calm but unreadable. There was no visible anger, no confrontation, just the kind of stillness that makes your chest tighten and your heart pound. He looked at Miles for a long moment, silently asking a question that words could not capture. Why now? Why after everything? Wei took a deep breath and spoke. His voice was low, controlled but shaky with emotion. He began with a simple line that carried years of unspoken tension. He said he was sorry. Sorry for the misunderstandings, the harsh words, the moments he wished he could take back. He admitted he had been afraid to face Dylan before, afraid of rejection, afraid of the consequences of his actions. Dylan listened quietly. His eyes, intense and unwavering, studied Miles carefully. He did not interrupt. He did not comment. He let him speak, letting each apology land fully in the silence between them. Every sentence seemed to lift a weight from Miles' shoulders, but the air remained heavy with the memories of what had happened between them. Then Miles spoke about specific moments, the mistakes, the words that should never have been said, and the actions that had driven a wedge between them. He admitted that fame, pride, and fear had clouded his judgment. He acknowledged that Dylan had been right in many ways, and that he had carried guilt quietly for far too long. As the confession continued, Dylan's expression softened ever so slightly. A flicker of understanding, of empathy, passed across his face. The tension in the room shifted, almost imperceptibly, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Wei's final words were almost a whisper. He said he hoped for forgiveness but did not expect it. He said he only wanted to be honest at last. He said that regardless of the outcome, he could no longer carry the weight of his silence. The room fell completely silent. Dylan Wang exhaled slowly, and for the first time, the world seemed to stop. His response was not immediate, but when it came, it carried a calm authority that stunned even Miles. Dylan admitted that he had been hurt deeply, but he also said he had never wanted to hate him. He acknowledged Miles' courage in finally speaking, and the sincerity of the apology could not be denied. Then something extraordinary happened. For the first time in months, the tension between them began to dissolve. Dylan extended a hand, a simple gesture of acknowledgement, of understanding, and of a tentative willingness to move forward. Miles hesitated, then grasped it firmly, a release of emotion so profound it was almost palpable. Fans who witnessed the leaks and shared snippets online were left in shock. Comments poured in. Many praised Wei for finally facing the truth, for showing vulnerability, for taking responsibility. Others celebrated Dylan Wang's grace, his ability to forgive, his willingness to allow closure where it was needed most. The social media waves were unstoppable, trending hashtags filled timelines, and debates erupted around every detail of the meeting. But beyond the fans, the cameras, and the commentary, the truth of the night remained private and intensely human. Two men, who had once been close and then torn apart by misunderstandings and pride, had finally confronted the pain between them. They had spoken, listened, and, for the first time, let some of the weight fall away. As Wei left the meeting, there was a quiet relief in his steps. The apology did not erase the past, but it allowed for a possibility of healing. Dylan Wang remained behind for a moment, reflecting on the fragile nature of relationships, trust, and the courage it takes to face someone you have wronged. And for Xinyu, who had observed much from the sidelines, it was a moment of profound clarity. She understood that apologies are not just about saying the words. They are about confronting the truth, facing emotions long avoided, and finding a way to move forward without holding grudges. The night ended quietly, but the story was far from over. Fans continued to react, speculate, and discuss what this apology might mean for the future. Would there be reconciliation? Would friendships be repaired? Or would the tension return in new ways? One thing was certain. Miles Wei had finally spoken. Dylan Wang had finally heard. And the world would never forget the night the silence was broken. The quiet after the initial apology hung heavy in the room. Miles Wei had said the words, the ones he had rehearsed for months, but Dylan Wang's expression gave nothing away. Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Xinyu, who had been quietly observing from a corner, felt her heart hammer in her chest. She knew this was more than just an apology. This was a confrontation with months of misunderstanding, unspoken truths, and raw emotion. Miles fidgeted with his hands, his voice breaking slightly as he added, I know I hurt you, I know I was wrong, and I can never take back the things I did, but I cannot carry this silence anymore. He looked at Dylan directly, waiting, hoping, almost pleading for understanding. Dylan exhaled slowly. His eyes softened just a fraction, revealing the storm inside him. He said nothing for several long moments. The tension was unbearable. Xinyu's eyes brimmed with tears, sensing that the next words could either destroy or heal the fragile bond between them. Then Dylan finally spoke. He admitted that he had been angry, frustrated, and deeply hurt. He recounted moments when he had felt betrayed, when pride and misunderstandings had built walls between them. But he also said he had never stopped caring, that beneath all the anger there was still respect, a bond forged through shared experiences, struggles, and unspoken loyalty. Miles Wei nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and guilt. He said he had wanted to come forward sooner but had feared the response, feared that Dylan would never forgive him. He confessed everything he had held back, the silent regrets, the sleepless nights, the moments of self-recrimination that had haunted him. Xinyu stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on Miles' shoulder. Her presence reminded both men that this confrontation was not just about pride but about truth and reconciliation. She whispered that honesty was the only way forward and that neither of them had to carry the past alone. As the night deepened, the conversation evolved. They spoke of mistakes, of misunderstandings magnified by rumors and social media. They reflected on moments they wished they could undo and memories they hoped to preserve. Every word revealed layers of vulnerability and humanity that fans would never see in public. Then came the moment that truly shocked everyone. Dylan reached out, placing a hand on Miles' arm. It was not just a gesture of forgiveness but a symbol of understanding and acceptance. Miles felt the tension dissolve slightly, the weight of months of guilt lifting from his chest. He realized that the apology was not an end but a beginning. A chance to rebuild trust and reshape their connection. Xinyu watched silently as the two men stood facing each other, finally unburdened by the walls they had built. But the night was not over. A new message buzzed on Miles' phone, a leak from the outside world. Someone had captured part of their meeting and it was already circulating among fans and insiders. Panic threatened to return, but Dylan calmly said that they could no longer hide from the truth. They had faced their emotions and spoken honestly, and that courage would carry them forward regardless of what the public thought. What followed next was unexpected. They began discussing a future collaboration, a project that would finally unite them publicly after months of separation and speculation. Plans, ideas, and tentative strategies flowed naturally, demonstrating that apologies could lead not just to emotional closure but also to renewed creativity and purpose. Hours passed. The storm outside had subsided, replaced by a quiet, almost surreal calm. Xinyu reflected on what she had witnessed. She realized that apologies were not just about saying the words but about facing vulnerability, accepting responsibility, and embracing the uncertainty of human emotion. By dawn, the trio stepped out into the first light of morning. The world was waiting. Fans were speculating endlessly on social media, commenting on leaked images, videos, and rumors. Every reaction reflected the intensity of what had occurred behind closed doors. Some were supportive, praising Miles for bravery. Others debated Dylan's response, analyzing every subtle gesture. But one thing was clear: this night would not be forgotten. For Miles Wei, the apology had been a turning point. For Dylan Wang, it was an opportunity to heal old wounds and embrace truth. And for Xingyu, it was a reminder that courage, honesty, and empathy could transform even the most tense and complicated situations. The story closed on a note of cautious hope. The public had witnessed part of the drama, but the private reconciliation, the real emotional core, remained theirs alone. And the world waited for what would come next, knowing that the bridges rebuilt that night would influence everything that followed. The fans continued to react, speculate, and analyze. The story went viral, trending across platforms. Hashtags multiplied, theories exploded, and global audiences were glued to their screens. But in the quiet aftermath, Miles, Dylan, and Xingyu knew something profound had occurred. They had faced the truth. They had apologized. And they had begun anew. The night that started with tension ended with understanding, the kind that transcends words, defies speculation, and leaves a lasting mark on everyone who truly witnessed it.